This is the third time I'm sitting down, and it's not because I'm procrastinating, it's just hard to say all this. Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nupur, and if you watched my last video, I mentioned how I'm currently doing a mini series based on true crime cases in India, and this is my second one. So if you didn't watch my first one, I'll link it somewhere here. You can watch it after this one or whenever you feel like. Please ignore the ticking sound as usual. So I'm just going to get into today's video, and today I'm going to talk about this case, which is probably the worst case that I'm going to cover in this series, and one of the worst cases that I've ever heard of personally. Today's video is going to be about the Nithari Hatyakand. So the case that I'm going to talk to you guys about today is called the Nithari Hatyakand because it took place in a village called Nithari in Noida near Delhi, and it's also called the 2006 Noida serial killings. So it all started when kids started going missing in the Nithari area around early 2005. And these kids were mostly from really low income families or kids of migrant laborers. And the parents of these kids were obviously very concerned, so they tried to report to the authorities. But the authorities, for some reason, did not take their complaints very seriously. And some parents of victims have even said that the police discouraged their complaints and, in some cases, even tried to intimidate them from not coming to file these complaints about the missing children. In the span of 2 years till December 2006, children are going missing in the Nithari region almost every 20 to 30 days. So the disappearances would commonly happen around this municipal water tank that the kids would play around, and obviously started spreading that this municipal water tank was haunted, and it was almost like an urban legend in the area, and parents started cautioning their children to not go there to play anymore. But kids being kids obviously did what they wanted to, and also I think that was the only available area for them to play in. So they kept going there, and kids kept going missing in this area. So then around March 2005, people in the neighborhood started complaining about this strong stench coming from a nala behind bungalow number D5, and authorities were informed, but there was no action taken. But soon enough, kids were playing in the area, and I'm guessing they were playing cricket, and the ball must have gone in the nala or something, and they must have gone to fetch it. But they stumbled upon what they described as some decaying flesh in a plastic bag, and obviously they were horrified by the sight, and they informed everybody that they met, and authorities were also informed very shortly. And when authorities came, they ruled it as an animal carcass, and that it was nothing to be concerned about. But the rancid stench continued to come from this nala. So then on May 7th of 2006, a girl called Payal went missing. And as I mentioned, so far only kids were going missing in the Nithari area, but Payal was not a kid. She was almost 20 years at the time of her disappearance. And her father, like other parents of victims, did go to the authorities and try to file a missing person report, but was unsuccessful. But Nanlal, Payal's father, was persistent. He did not give up. He wanted to find out what happened to his daughter or where his daughter was. And he tried to reach out to all authorities. And finally, he reached out to the Noida SSP, who ordered that the local authorities file a complaint. And that is when finally a missing person report was filed for Payal and an investigation started. Now, Nanlal claimed that Payal had last told him that she was going to go to bungalow number D5 and she'd be back in a couple of hours. And Nanlal also said that Payal had a cell phone, and he spent months trying to pursue cops and the cell phone company to try and track her cell phone down to find her location. And eventually cops did. They realized that the phone was turned on and it was found in the Noida region itself. So the cops tracked it down and they found the phone with this rickshaw guy in the area, and they went to this rickshaw guy and they were like, why do you have Payal's phone? Where is Payal? Like, who are you? When did you last see her? All of these questions. And this rickshaw guy was just taken aback. He was like, I don't know any Payal. I don't know what you're talking about. I got this phone from a guy in bungalow number D5 in Nithari. And this is when it all started coming together. So now let me take a step back and tell you about the people who lived in D5, which is the literal house of horrors. This house was owned by a man named Muninder Singh Pandey. Muninder Singh Pandey came from an affluent family, but he was a wealthy man himself too. He ran multiple businesses. He had a wife and a son who was studying in Canada at the time. He also owned a house in Chandigarh as well as his house in Nithari, and I have read that his wife spent most of her time in the Chandigarh house, whereas he spent most of his time in the Nithari house. I've read some reports which say that they were separated, but I can't be too sure about that. So all in all, Maninder Singh Pandey had a good, privileged life, and thanks to his privilege, he also had a lot of help around his house, especially in Nithari, where he mostly lived by himself. So he had at least 4 servants that we know of. He had a driver, a gardener, a maid, and a manservant called Surinder Kohli. So now Surinder Kohli is the other most important character in the story. Kohli started working for Pandey when he was around 34 years old. He originally came from a village near Almora in Uttarakhand. He studied only up to about 4th standard, and when he was 8 years old, he started working with his father, who either ran or owned a butcher shop. His job was to skin the animals, and this is when it is said that he developed a taste for meat, even though he came from like a vegetarian and Hindu family. And some reports even say that this is when he developed a taste for raw meat. Irrespective, people in the village remember Kohli as a polite, regular, and simple boy, and they did not notice any red flags growing up. And even though he wasn't from a wealthy household, he had a loving and supportive family and upbringing. So as he became older, Kohli moved to Delhi in hopes of getting a job, as most migrant workers do. And he found a job as a dishwasher in a rundown hotel. And during this time when he was working in Delhi, he went back to his village and he married a woman called Shanti. They also had a daughter named Simran. And he would go back and forth from Delhi to his village. He'd probably go back twice a year. Over time, he progressed to getting a job as a cook in a retired army brigadier's house, also in the Nithari area. And he worked there for 5 years till 1998 until he met Pandey, and then he started working as his servant in D5. So now getting back to Payal's phone and her case, the police, although they tracked it back to D5, they didn't have a lot of other evidence to go by, which is why her case just started collecting dust. By the end of the year in 2006, people in the neighborhood were fed up of this rancid stench coming from this nala, and they contacted the RWA president. The RWA, I think, is the Residents Welfare Association, and the president's name was S.C. Mishra, and he decided to help find out what was going on in these drains, and they decided to dig up the drains. And then on December 29th, 2006, they dug up the drain behind D5. And I don't think anybody could ever be ready for what they found there. Like, what they found almost immediately were 3 human skulls, and these skulls were possibly skulls of children. And obviously this news spread like wildfire in the neighborhood, and people started rushing to the spot, especially parents of kids who were missing, and they were trying to ask if it was their kids that were found. Before authorities even arrived, they had found as many as 8 human skulls and 15 skeletal remains. And they found these along with like clothes and backpacks and other personal belongings, possibly of children. And they were all found in like multiple plastic or gunny bags and all tied up differently. Like, I don't know how to explain this. There was not like one complete body found together. It was all in like bits and pieces in these different bags, and you're finding like limbs in one bag but like skulls in another bag, and it was a truly horrific sight. And parents of children were recognizing them by their personal belongings at this point. They were like, that is my kid's bangles and those are my kids' clothes. And one of the victims found was called Pinky Sarkar, and her brother Sonu Sarkar was at the scene, and he recognized his sister from her green clothes and her white bangles. And I cannot even imagine what somebody will go through when something like this happens. Like, the fact that they found them in this way is truly horrific, and nobody should have to go through this. Like, this is why we have a system in place to just protect people from these kind of horrors, right? Like, so here's the odd part. At the time, obviously, people didn't notice because they were horrified with what they had found, but they did not find any vital organs when they found these bodies. It was mostly like the personal belongings and skeletal remains and bones. And for a body to reach that level of decomposition would at least take 3 years. And these disappearances started only 2 years ago. So there was no natural way that these bodies could have been in the way that they were found. So it proved that these bodies were mutilated by somebody. So because these bodies were found behind D5, Pandey and Kohli were immediately taken to the questioning, and they were detained in the case of Payal because police already had evidence to link Payal's disappearance to D5. So the next day, on December 30th of 2006, the police got a search warrant for bungalow number D5. And when they first entered the house, it seemed completely normal. They found a lot of alcohol stock. They found the fridge stocked with chicken and fish, and it seemed that it was ready to host a party or to serve a lot of people. But when they looked further, they did find a lot of incriminating evidence. In Pandey's room, they found a lot of child pornography in form of CDs, magazines, etc. And then they made their way to the terrace, and on the terrace they found 3 dustbins full of bodies. And they also found weapons such as axes and knives, like really large axes and knives with blood stains on them. So at this point, obviously Pandey and Kohli looked very guilty and they were taken into police custody immediately. So obviously some responsibility had to be taken by the local authorities for their gross negligence and severe delay in taking any action. And as a result, a few members of the local police force were fired and senior members of the police force were also suspended. But the victims of the family still weren't satisfied. They believed that Pandey was an affluent man and he was influential and he might be able to get away with it if local authorities still handled the case. And the government decided to hand over the case to the CBI at this point. The CBI held Kohli for questioning for 60 days and they could not find a lot of evidence, but Kohli decided to confess pretty soon. I'm going to get into what Kohli confessed to doing. So Kohli gave cops a detailed account on how he would lure children into D5. He said he would go to the water tank where he knew the children would be playing and then he would offer them chocolate or candy, or he would offer them like little chores and say he would like pay them for it. In the case of one victim, Jyoti Lal, her father Jabu Lal was the local istriwala, and he just told her that, come collect some clothes. So under like very basic pretenses, he would lure these children in and attack them. And then he speaks about how he would physically attack them as soon as he's gotten them into the house. He confessed to luring into D5 and attacking a total of 9 girl children, 2 male children and 5 female victims. He said he would first get them into the house and attack them. He either strangled them or attacked them with an object or with a weapon, and then he would have sex with their lifeless or unconscious body. He said he would murder them in the living room and then he would carry their body up to the bathroom where he would cut them up into pieces, and then he would bring these pieces down to the kitchen and cook them and eat them, and on some occasions even serve them to others. Honestly, I can't even say this. And he said that after this, whatever was left behind, he would throw in the drains behind D5.
लड़की सेक्टर 30 की तरफ से 31 नेठारी की तरफ आ रही थी। इसका नाम दिखाने पे और बाद में पता चला पुलिस की तरफ इसका नाम टिम्पा है। इसको मैंने काम के लिए बुला लिया अंदर। इसको अंदर लाते ही मैंने इसको बोला कि सामने से मतलब जो है अभी मैडम आ रही, मैं पैसे की बात करवा देता हूँ। और जैसे ये उधर को देख रही थी, मैंने पीछे से इसी के इसका गला दबा करके और इसको डिवोर्स कर दिया। उसके बाद इसके साथ सेक्स करने की कोशिश किया और सेक्स करने की कोशिश किया। थोड़ी देर सेक्स करने की कोशिश करने के बाद उसके बाद जब सेक्स नहीं हो पाया मेरे से, मैंने गला दबा करके इसको मार दिया इस स्थिति में। इसके बाद फिर मैंने इसको ऊपर बाथरूम में लेके चला गया। ऊपर बाथरूम में ले जा करके नीचे आया किचन में, नीचे किचन में से आकर के चाकू लेके गया और इसको मैंने उसी टाइम तुरंत काट करके और इसका मैंने बाजू और ये सीने का एक पीस भी खाया था।
अच्छा,
हाँ जी, जो मैंने घर में मतलब किचन में बनाया था।
किचन में बनाया था?
हाँ जी।
Keep in mind that he claimed that he did this in broad daylight between 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for over a span of 2 years. And makes me so mad. Like, we know other people live in this house. Pandey lives in this house. His wife sometimes lives in this house. And we know that there are at least 4 other servants. And how did no one notice? And also he claimed that he did not clean up anything until his whole thing was over. So that could potentially take hours. So how did nobody notice a crime scene in the living room for over 2 years? That makes no sense to me, but it is what he confessed to. So at this point, Kohli admitted to rape, kidnapping, murder, necrophilia and cannibalism, among other things. And this confession is crazy. I don't even know what to say about it. So here I'm going to take a minute to talk about Pandey and Kohli's relationship with each other. Now, obviously, Pandey was Kohli's boss, but Kohli was also Pandey's like right-hand man. And Pandey had a certain lifestyle, like he enjoyed his life, and he had affluent friends, he had riches, and he enjoyed his indulgences, to put it lightly. And Kohli, who was a simple man from a small village, was taken aback by this lifestyle. And he said that watching Pandey influenced him to like start drinking. He started like trying to steal or procure or buy alcohol from different places, and he said that when he was drunk he would get like these negative emotions. He expressed these feelings as like negative feelings of gratification and desire. Psychologists who have spoken to Kohli say that he just started to really desire the lifestyle that Pandey was leading, and the fact that he was alone, away from his own wife and family, and like away from a social structure that would provide support and also some sort of accountability, and that's why he was giving in to these urges that he was feeling.
See, even before he came to Pandey's house, he was working with another person for almost about a year and a half. He says when he was living in their houses, there also he had all these fantasies. But there the home atmosphere did not give him those kind of opportunities wherein he could give way to his fantasies.
So after Kohli made the confession, both Pandey and Kohli were taken to Gandhinagar for NACRO analysis. And what I think NACRO analysis includes, from what I understand, is that it includes a lie detector test, a tooth serum, and brain mapping. And I don't think any of these are admissible in court, but it's still interesting to see what results they yield. Under NACRO analysis, Kohli admitted to quite a lot. Kohli said that he called Payal, and Payal presumed that it was for Pandey, so she did go over to D5. And when she didn't find Pandey there, Kohli offered her 400 rupees for her services. And at this point, Payal tried to leave, but Kohli attacked her. And then after this, we know his MO. He attacked her, he murdered her in the living room, and then he had sex with her lifeless body. Pandey, on the other hand, did not crack under pressure. He said that he and his wife had some problems and that his wife could not satisfy him sexually, which is why he would go and try to seek gratification at other places, but he did not admit to much else. He did admit to everything that the police did find evidence, like the child pornography that they found. He could not get away from that charge. But everything that Kohli was associated with, he tried to like not be involved in. At some point, he did admit that he got oral sexual favors from Kohli's victims, but he said that he wasn't involved with anything apart from that, which is shady. Kohli also tried to retract his statement about 9 months after his initial confession, saying that Pandey was threatening him.
मेरे को जो है गलत फंसा गया है, मेरे खिलाफ किसी भी प्रकार का कोई एविडेंस नहीं है और कोर्ट ने इस केस में जो है बहुत ज़्यादा अनदेखी करी है.
And a lot of other witnesses, including Nandlal, if you remember, Payal's father, also changed their statements a couple of times, and that's why it's really hard to determine how involved either Pandey or Kohli were in these crimes, because they've gone back and forth in their statements a lot. But I guess both are equally responsible for what happened. So now I'm going to get into the sentencing in this case. There are at least 19 identified victims in this case, and their families have fought for so long and they fought so hard for justice. So each of this case is its own hearing. So I'm going to quickly tell you the cases that have been dealt with and what the decision was. The first case that went to trial was the case of Ripa Haldar, who was 14 at the time of her disappearance. The trial was held on 12th Feb 2009, and both Kohli and Pandey were pronounced guilty. Subsequently, on the next day, Feb 13th, they both were given their first death sentence. The next case that went to trial was on 4th May 2010. It was the case of Aarti Prasad, and only Kohli was pronounced guilty, and shortly after, on 12th May, Kohli was given his second death sentence in this case. On September 27th, 2010, in the case of Rachna Lal, only Kohli was pronounced guilty and received his third death sentence. Then on December 22nd, 2010, in the case of Dipali Sarkar, Kohli received his fourth death sentence. On December 24th, 2012, Kohli was found guilty in the case of Choti Kavita and given his fifth death sentence. In July of 2014, the President of India, who was Pranab Mukherjee, denied Kohli's mercy petition. On September 3rd, a death warrant was issued for Kohli for the date of September 12th, but in the same month, his lawyers petitioned for a stay on the death sentence. On Jan 28, 2015, High Court Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice P.K.S. Baghel reduced his death sentence to a life imprisonment sentence due to inordinate delay in deciding the mercy petition. Then on July 24th, 2017, in the case of Pinky Sarkar, both Kohli and Pandher were found guilty and were given death sentences. This was the 8th and last hearing in this case that has happened so far. So now that I've given you all the facts and stats, I'm going to get into some of the speculation. Now, obviously, we have Kohli's confession and he has admitted to everything and he's given an explanation for all the crimes that were committed. But I'm just going to go into this other theory that's pretty popular in this case, and that theory is of organ trade. If you remember, I mentioned earlier when the bodies were found, a lot of the vital organs were missing. It was only skeletons and skulls and bones that were found, but not any vital organs. There were no livers and kidneys and such. And a lot of victims' parents do believe in this theory, and they have said that they want authorities to look into it more. But maybe the authorities have looked as far as they can and they found Kohli guilty for everything. But it's just, I guess, so hard to believe that somebody is capable of all of these things that you might just want to look for another explanation. And this other explanation does make sense. And it's also common knowledge that there was a doctor who lived in the adjoining bungalow, like the adjacent bungalow to D5. I'm pretty sure it shared a wall with D5. And that doctor was earlier involved in some sort of organ scam. But he was cleared in that previous case. And obviously, I'm sure the police haven't found much information to link him to this case. But it's a very popular theory online that it could have been what happened, and it does make a lot more sense than a cannibal killer. And I guess it's hard to digest what Kohli has done and for us to rationalize. And if there was some scheme and some business running behind it, I think it would just make more sense. It wouldn't be justified in any way. I'm not trying to say that at all, but it just would make more sense that, there was a purpose why this was happening. So, yeah, organ trade is a really popular theory. I would love to know what you think happened, whether you think that Kohli was the only one responsible and Pandher did not know what was happening, because that's what Pandher's family still tries to say, that Pandher was not involved and that he's innocent and that he just, had this lifestyle, like this flamboyant lifestyle, but that he wasn't a criminal necessarily.
An innocent man should die, then fine. If that's what gives everyone pleasure, an innocent man being hanged to death, so be it.
And what happened to these kids was so tragic and so unfair, and also to the families who had to go through this in the worst way possible. Like, it's bad enough that an incident like this has to happen in your life, but the way that they found out about everything and the way that authorities went about it and the lack of support they received is honestly so sad and so disheartening. And I think that everybody deserves to be treated with respect and dignity and humanity. And I think that was severely lacking in this case with how everything was found and how the investigation went on. So yeah, that's it for this case. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. That would really help me out. Also, if you like true crime content and if you would watch true crime content, I would really like it if you give this a thumbs up, because it would help me know, because I want to create content like this, but I don't know if many people would watch it. So yeah, if you like true crime content, please give this a thumbs up. And if you have any case suggestions for me or anything that you think I could do on this channel, please leave a comment before and hit that subscribe button. That would be really helpful. Turn the post notifications on too. And yeah, that's it from me today. I will see you next Friday. Also, I think I should mention at some point that I'm going to upload every Friday. So at some point in the day, whenever it's ready, I guess. I don't have a fixed time yet, but Friday is when I'm aiming to upload. So watch out for a video every Friday. And now I'm going to go, but I will see you soon next week with another true crime video.